Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Go Beyond. My name is Alyssa Robinson. I am here with our senior pastor, Reverend Daniel Humbert, and Go Beyond is a time that we dig deeper into the message from Sunday, and this Sunday was all about invitation. It was titled Come and See, and talking about inviting people into the story of Jesus and how Jesus has impacted us. And the very first question I'm going to ask today, which is from our huddle guide, and y'all can always get the huddle guide at tmumc.org/stories or right here in the TMUMC app.
Isn't that a cool app?
It is. Whoever built it is a genius. So my first question is, why is it so difficult to witness for you?
Yeah, I first of all, I think we could all own it's probably a little difficult, right? But I think for me, the difficulty is more even though I kind of intellectually know, golly, the burden of somebody accepting Jesus or living into a relationship with him is not on me. I still hold that burden. I still, even though I've got that sense that I know it's not, but also carry this burden of, man, I don't want people to think I'm weird. I don't want people to think that I somehow am different than them or better than them or any of that stuff. And so there's always a hesitancy that just kind of goes, am I ready? Should I do this? Can I do this? So yeah, that's always there.
I think that for me, it is all of the baggage that comes with Christianity and how, man, we've gotten it wrong for centuries. And the church and Christians have been some of the most hurtful people in the history of the world and have done some of the most damage. And not just on, a world level of literally killing people because you're not converting to Christianity, but also on a personal level of people feeling rejected by the church because of who they are, people feeling unworthy, and all of the judgment that they feel because we've gotten it wrong. And so I don't like identifying as a Christian for a lot of, and that sounds like a really weird thing to say for someone who works at the church, but I'm not just going to come out and say I'm a Christian. I want you to get to know me as a person before you learn anything about my faith. And my hope is that once you get to know me as a person, you're pleasantly surprised to find out that I'm a Christian, as opposed to me leading with that information. And for people to be like, oh, Christians can be like this? Like, and that's kind of why it's hard for me to just come out and say it. Right.
And I think that leads into why I shared what I did on Sunday, which is all about, it needs to be based in relationship, right? And based in listening, because that's just huge.
Well, why is relationship and listening important to witnessing?
Oh, what a question that is. And so you hit the nail on the head. It has to do with, again, I hate to make it so crass as this, but I just relate it to sales. So anybody who's ever gone through sales knows that when you try to make a sale, you're not going to just sort of dump your wares there and say, hey, will you buy this stuff? You listen to the client, you listen to the customer, you discover their needs, their wants, their desires, their dreams. And while I don't believe we're in sales, I do think there's some correlation there about, man, how much better and more effective could we be at sharing the gospel and sharing about Jesus if we first spend time getting to know people, and them, us, obviously. That's what a relationship is about. But secondly, listening first. I always go back to what you do with regard to just an open-ended question with regard to God. You ask the question, and then you listen, right? You respect whoever that person is. And I think that's what listening does, is it says, I respect you. I honor you. I believe that you are a person of worth and value because I'm going to give you my full attention, my time. And that listening, man, it not only does that, but it also sort of buys you credibility because you've given them time and energy and effort, right? Rather than just dumping something on them or sort of using them as a ploy to do something, right?
Well, and I get why you make the sales comparison. I hate that so much. I hate it so much because
when a salesperson does that to you?
No. Because I feel like, to my earlier response and all of the ways that we've got it wrong as Christians, I think a lot of it stems from we see Christianity as a product that we're trying to sell to people.
Yeah.
And so I understand the comparison, having worked in marketing and sales and wanting to build that relationship. But then that also comes back to that feeling of there's an agenda here. There's a motivation. At the end of the day, do I really care about you as a person, or am I trying to sell you on something? Am I trying to convert you, and am I trying to get you to buy in, whatever it is? And I feel like we have to check ourselves, and part of that listening and relationship is coming in without an agenda.
Yes. No, I agree wholeheartedly. And I think that's where we likewise get the concerns and the fear on the front end. I mean, you expressed it just like I did, and that is our whole goal in maintaining or establishing a relationship is not about, hey, can I get another one, right? Can I capture another? It's literally, I just want to develop relationship with people. And if over the course of time, conversation around Jesus or conversation around faith or conversation around what motivates you or what brings you joy, I can speak into that as a part of the relationship. For instance, I have a couple of Jewish friends who every once in a while we talk about Jesus. I'm not talking about Jesus with those Jewish friends in order to convert them. I'm talking about Jesus in order for us to find common bonds because Jesus was a Jew, right? And so when I speak with them, it has nothing to do with, when Jesus comes up, it has nothing to do with a desire to convert them, a desire to win them to the faith of Jesus. It has everything to do with us finding common bonds in a guy that our faith traditions have some commonality in.
Well, and if anything, they might be able to teach you more about Jesus
absolutely.
than you knew because they have that same Jewish faith background, and you'll get a perspective of Jesus from someone who shares a faith with Jesus.
Absolutely.
That you wouldn't have gotten
That's
from
correct.
Going to a Christian church.
That's correct. And so, again, that's why this relationship concept is so important, because it really is only in due time and over time, whether or not you can determine, discern, whatever you want to identify, is there an appropriate moment? Is there something we're talking about that I could share my faith about with the person already knowing your heart, your spirit, your whatever? And again, they're much more willing to listen. And again, the goal, in my opinion, should never literally be, can I win this person? Can I convert this person? Can I make this person claim this same faith? The goal really is to simply share your lives together, pure and simple.
So you mentioned these conversations that you've had with your Jewish friends. When was the last time you had a conversation about Jesus with someone who doesn't have a relationship with Jesus?
Yeah, so it doesn't happen all that often. It's not like it's a daily thing, not even necessarily a weekly thing.
We live in the Bible Belt. It's hard to find people who have absolutely zero relationship with Jesus, whether positive or negative.
Well, yes and no. I think we fall into what I would just call complacency over that because we live in supposedly the Bible Belt. So just a couple of stats that we know. We use a marketing research outfit to kind of get demographic stuff. And what we know from a 5-mile radius around this church is there's roughly 100,000 people who have no faith claim, no relationship of any kind in a faith community. That's a lot of people. We're bound to know one or two of those 100,000 people.
But
Likewise,
just because you don't make a faith claim, does that mean you don't? How can we assume that somebody doesn't have a relationship with Jesus just because they don't claim a specific faith?
Well, so obviously the response to that is we don't know whether somebody literally has a relationship with Jesus or not, but what we know just demographically is there are people who've responded to questions who say, I don't have a faith claim. If I don't have a faith claim, whatever faith that is, whether it's Hinduism or Judaism or some other faith tradition, it means I have willingly said, I don't have a faith claim. And so to me, that says, golly, if I don't have a faith claim, in other words, I've not placed faith in anything, I'm kind of doubting they have a relationship with Jesus. But I also believe, and this is where this question is sort of a little nebulous, I believe people can know about Jesus, can even say, I'm a follower of Jesus, and not have a relationship with Jesus. The unfortunate reality is every church I've ever served has people like that, right? They claim to be followers of Jesus. They claim to be Christian, but it's obvious by how they live their lives or what they value or however you want to say it, that they don't really have a relationship, because that relationship is what claims for us a different way of being, right? That we're all challenged by. None of us is perfect at it. But as a simple, for instance, I've got several family members in sort of response to this question that I would say, I'm not convinced they necessarily have a relationship with Jesus, but they would say that they're Christian. They would say that either they go to church or whatever. And so those conversations are a little more common. And clearly, my purpose in having a conversation, I shouldn't say clearly, my purpose in having that conversation with them is not to convert them. They already have a sense of what it means to who Jesus is and what this faith is all about. But my point in having a conversation with them is to help them discover, man, there's more to this than just saying, I know Jesus, or I'm a Christian, or I go to church every once in a while. I think you would agree that just going to church doesn't make somebody a Christian, right? And just going to church doesn't even mean you necessarily have a relationship with Jesus. It just means you go to church, right? I mean...
Well, and there are people I've known who don't make the faith claim of Christianity, but the values they hold and the way they live their lives, I'm like, somehow this person knows Jesus and I don't know how. Like, and I think that it can be an indirect connection or something that Christ is doing that I don't understand, that people have absolutely no understanding of who Jesus is, and the way that I do of having been raised in the church and studied scriptures about Jesus my entire life, and somehow they are more connected to Jesus than I am.
Yeah.
And that's just a mystery to me.
It is a mystery. And I think you're hitting on something, that it is possible that they have this relationship with Jesus that's very personal and well-connected, but they may not even identify it as such, right? There's a little bit of that nature of I'm spiritual but not religious, right? That I've got these internal things that help connect me with either faith or Jesus, and I don't need other forms of that.
And people make fun of that as being like a millennial snowflake saying of I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. But man, I connect hard with that. Like,
so for you, what does that mean? What is the distinction between being spiritual and being religious?
Being religious to me is a set of rules and traditions that you have to stick to. And spirituality is letting go of all of that and just allowing, and it is more like a free-spirited, emotional sort of connection. But religion to me is an institution. And spirituality is personal and something that you can only discover for yourself.
Yeah. So these conversations about Jesus, I just want to reemphasize, we need to do more of it as followers of Jesus. It's a part of us, right? If we're followers of Jesus, it's a part of who we are. And we share it simply as that, like we might share any other component of our lives. If somebody in that conversation at some point says, golly, that's something I want to follow, or that's not really the point. The point is simply to share a part of our lives. That's what I believe.
So when I think of the last time, I think we veered from the question, but the last time I talked to someone about Jesus who doesn't already have a relationship with Jesus. So I was kind of pushing you because I'm like, well, how do I know that someone doesn't have a relationship? Most of my conversations about Jesus are with people who do have a relationship, and it's a debate around who was Jesus, curiosity mindset of what do other people believe about who this man was and is. And those are conversations that I don't think are helpful to someone who is new to the faith and discovering Jesus for the first time. And I don't know how to have conversations with people who are just dipping a toe in, because I want to go straight into the tough, challenging conversations, which I could be detrimental to someone else's faith journey, and they're not ready for it.
Yeah. So a little teaser, we'll do a little bit of that. Or somehow we've got the answer, or somehow I'm in the better place, right? When in reality, I mean, it's just like teaching. You don't start teaching kids physics when they don't know anything about math or science, right? You start with where they are. And I think sharing faith and talking about Jesus is very helpful to start with where people are rather than where we want them to be. Yeah.
Well, that's about all we have time for.
Really? No.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, I try to keep it to 15 minutes. Sometimes we go over. But thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Go Beyond. And you can catch all previous episodes at tmumc.org/go beyond. And we will see you again on Wednesday at 12:30, where I get to ask my questions and challenge Daniel
Those
a
weren't
little
your
bit
questions?
more.
Dadgummit.
Well, I kind of threw in some of my own today. I got you. But we'll see you again on Wednesday.
Take care.